Next, we're going to hear from our resident expert in property, Gavin Human from Exquisite Home. So, Gavin, I really remember that moment back in March 2020. I think it was around 5 o'clock when the Prime Minister said, right, that's it, folks, you've all got to go and work from home. And we packed everything up, we said farewell, kind of thought we'd be back in a week or two's time. And that turned out to be wrong. So for you, working in the property sector in and around Cambridge, what have you noticed about how businesses adapted to this big shift?
I think we'd already begin to see a shift over the last 3 or 4 years with regards to people working from home, maybe only 2 or 3 days a week. And what the coronavirus done has most certainly accelerated that. I think there's a bit of excitement first to working from home. It was a new challenge, but I do think people now realise that it brings its own challenges itself, whether that be with children running around or being in a confined space. I don't think home working is as rosy as we sometimes make it out to be. But I do think a lot of companies have done a fantastic job at adapting, and employees have done a fantastic job at adapting to the current situation.
Yeah, it was something that I saw fairly early on. CEOs in Silicon Valley, you could almost get this sense of giddiness with them thinking, oh, hang on, I might be able to save a few dollars here and there with not having to pay for all of this office space. Do you think that people at the top understand the challenges for people within the business, like you say, if they've got caring responsibilities or people working from their bedrooms?
No, I don't think they did to begin with, but I do think they do now. I think working from home, yes, you've got the flexibility, there's a better work-life balance, but I don't think anybody could see the challenges that it was going to bring with it as well. But I think the once drab office environment where we're all crammed into a cubicle, quite often some of them windowless, will become a thing of the past. I think we will now have offices that will become a destination where you want to go to, that provides an experience, a connection, and a choice for people to go into. I do think we're going to see a significant change over the next few years, and the companies that get it right will win significantly. They'll attract the talent that really do want to work for them.
And what have you seen, say, in business centres in the area? So I know a lot of companies, they're tied into a lease, and pandemic or no pandemic, that's it. They've got to keep on paying that rent every month. But in business centres, it's a lot more flexible, isn't it? So people are hot desking. So have you seen business centres change to try and make sure that the tenants stay in these ways that, you know, you're saying that they have to offer a little bit more?
I think we'll see them change more over the coming year. I think they do offer flexibility where in the past there've been a 6-month or 12-month contract. I think we will see a lot of these places and even your normal high street offices offering rolling contracts. But I think these business parks will become hubs for companies. I think there was some research out recently that said out of the workforce, only 8% of people wanted to work 5 days a week from home. So I do think the office has still a very important part to play in our work-life balance. But I think these business centres will adapt. I think the interiors will become far more invigorating and engaging. I think they'll also offer coffee shops and snack stations within them. I think they'll also do yoga sessions at lunchtime or running clubs. I think they're going to have to adapt to make sure they include everybody. And I think you also want to feel a sense of community within these working environments. And I think we all miss that social interaction. We go into work, we want to talk to our colleagues or to Stephen across the road. We want to be engaging people. So I think these business centres will adapt as well.
Yeah, I think it's about getting that balance, isn't it? Because every time I have gone into the office, I've thought, oh, great, I'm going to the office, and you get all of this extra mental stimulation. But then you're also having to fit in the commute. And I'm always thinking, oh, what have I left behind? So just tell me a little bit about what you've seen in the nature of the inquiries that you've had for home buyers. Are people staying put and extending, or are they trying to move to places that have got more scope for a home office?
Definitely a scope for home office. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen people moving out of London, and even Cambridge, people moving away from the city centre, going out into the villages because they don't need to necessarily go into work 5 days a week. We have seen where previously we've had a house with an office space or a study. What we have begun to see, and again, over the last year, it has changed enormously, people wanting to work from home, but not from within the house. There's one of the companies we deal with, Snuggeries, who are based in St Neots, where they do these office pods. And again, that's something that's really going to come to the forefront of buying a house, where people want space to have an office pod, a refurbished garden shed that they feel as though they can walk out to in the morning and go to work. And at 6 o'clock at night, they can lock up and go back home.
Yeah, it seems to me it's about boundaries, isn't it? So there's such a blur between working in a home and then living in a home. And people often think it would be great to work from home. And then you're kind of forced into that situation. You suddenly realise, well, actually, I do like that separation between being in the office and being able to close the door and then having my home life. So you're seeing that a lot then, are you? That people are starting to find that maybe it's not as great as it might first appear.
Absolutely, Sue. I think home working is here to stay. But I think we've also got to take into the fact that if you are working from home, it can be lonely. You can feel isolated. So I think it's down to the employers to get that balance right. The other thing I think we've got to look at is active commuting. Cambridge, it's been a thing there all the time, people cycling, commuting into work. But I think, again, that's another aspect of the work-life balance we're going to see change as well. More people are going to want to cycle to work. And what facilities does the office have? Shower facilities, wash facilities? Can you lock your bike up outside, or is there dry storage? This active commuting, again, I think is something that we're going to see become an integral part of our work-life balance.
So one last question for you, Gavin. What's the impact going to be on Cambridge property prices? Any chance they're going to go down in the near future?
No.
That's bad news for a lot of people.
At the end of the day, it's always about supply and demand. Cambridge, regardless of what happens over the next few years, is still a fascinating city and people will want to live there.